So over the last decade, AI has moved from research papers to boardroom. But what's happening now is very different. Two breakthroughs are refining how the world is transforming. One is the multimodal AI that can listen, read text, and do different kinds of data inputs to make sense of how we operate in the world. And second is an agentic AI, which lives in your business and acts like a digital employee. It can plan, take actions, use tools, and make decisions for you. And this is no longer science fiction. It's already happening. So the question may no longer be, is AI ready? The real question is, are we deploying it fast enough and in the right way? Our panel will focus on three things every leader is thinking about: see credible working examples, quick deployment, and where to invest. Where are the outsized returns? So with that, we'd begin with introductions around the room, and I'd move over to my fellow panelist, Zachary.
Hi, everyone. I think a lot of people in the room know me. I'm the founder of Dalma Capital, also founded AIM Summit, and I'm a venture partner in Draper Associates. I spend probably 70 to 80% of my time focusing on AI and AI infrastructure at the moment, putting together various deals cross-border, some involving the Middle East, some in the US, quite a bit in Europe as well. So this is a topic of high interest to us at Dalma Capital.
Right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Colvin. I am an over-promoted systems engineer from the 90s through a combination of very poor oversight and remarkably good timing. Has somehow managed to carve out a 30-year career in technology. I've been a chief technology officer for the past 20 years, excuse me. And for the past 10 years, I was the Group Chief Technology Officer for Family Office Markall, based in London. I'm currently a senior advisor to the von Siemens family office, and I also play a role in one of the portfolio companies called Care Syntax, where I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer, and we're building the next generation of intelligence for the operating room. Thank you.
And I am Maryann Tseng. I was a former investment banker, mostly with Morgan Stanley. Now I am working for SenseTime Inc. SenseTime Inc. is a Hong Kong Stock Exchange listed artificial intelligence company at about 15 billion market cap. And the fact is also a few years ago, SenseTime was my last project as an investment banker. I was part of the team that brought SenseTime to list successfully at Hong Kong Stock Exchange. SenseTime itself is an artificial intelligence company that does offer end-to-end solutions, all the way from AIDC data centers to building our own large language model, our own foundation model. We have deployed our AI solutions across a variety of verticals, including agentic AI. And later I can share many more case studies where we are already seeing revenue-generating AI solutions being deployed in domain-specific sectors.
Great, and I'm Mourad, and I run the Middle East and Africa region for SimCorp, hosting this session. The solution is basically investment management solutions for all types of investors out there. So we work quite a lot with pretty much all the sovereign wealth funds in the region, as well as asset managers, other asset owners, hedge funds, where we come up with solutions for the portfolio management, risk management, P&L type of calculation. But we'll learn more about this throughout the session.
Thank you. And I'm Parag. I'm a startup founder based out of Singapore, and I build AI-first businesses and systems that focus on prediction abilities and decision-making to deliver prosperity. And my startup's current intellectual property is a combination of multimodal and agentic AI platform that focuses on predicting financial market prices and creates value with two products. One is a AI plus human-in-the-loop enablement, an app that provides price prediction for traders to make decisions or profitable trade ideas in minutes. And then second is our internal use platform that is an investment fund and that aims to generate or targets to generate about 50% a year in return. Full autonomy AI and AI with human in the loops. That's what I do. Thank you. With this, let's look at the bit of a background on these two topics, multimodal and agentic AI. And let's move on to Derek. Derek, would you like to share a little bit about what they mean and a little bit in what audience would understand in a simple way?
Maybe we could split this into two sections, which is what's the definition of AI before 2022, roughly, and what's the definition of AI 2022 onwards. Before 2022, we'd been using AI for decades. It was in everything that we did. If you applied for a credit card, it was AI. If you were running logistics, it was AI. But back then, we just called it machine learning, where we were looking for statistics in large amounts of data, numerical data, textual data, and we could find interesting things out from that. Then in 2022, Google, and if you remember at the time, there was an engineer that was fired from Google because he thought that they'd developed something sentient. Now, they hadn't, but what they had developed is something called a large language model, something that was called generative AI. And whilst the generative AI is not, in fact, conscious, it does a really good impression of making you think that it's real and you can have interactions with it. So the pre-2022 period was probably quite narrow, and post-2022 now is quite broad, and we can do a bunch of different things. Just breaking it out a little bit further, what is AI? I mean, a traffic light system is AI, something that switches your traffic light from red to green. Moving up from that, you then have machine learning, which I described a second ago. Then you move into something called deep learning, which starts to think about, how does the data perceive itself, and how can it then share that perception with other systems, or in fact, a user. Then we move up to these foundational models, which I'm sure all of you have heard of, like ChatGPT, Google Gemini. These are foundational models that can do a bunch of stuff because they've been trained on wide range of data. Then we have emergent behaviors, which is all about reasoning. And then, to Parag's point, we've got agentic, which is something which is goal-orientated. So you give it a starting position, and you don't need to know what happens in the middle. It just goes off and does stuff with you, and that stuff could be interaction with other systems, it could be interaction with other AIs, it could be interaction with other data, until it gets to the goal that you've requested. And multimodal, which is historically large language models, were just that. It was language only. So it would take all of the textual data that had been published on the internet, and it would consume it and trying to figure out what the patterns were between all of the things that it discovered. It now does that for audio, and it does that for video as well. And the big difference there is that text is structured, whereas audio and video are unstructured. So you're now commingling intelligence between structured data and unstructured data to drive even deeper intelligence.
Thank you. Well, there's a lot going on in this. I think AI is a little bit like a celebrity. It's in the news every day. And a little bit like, why now? I know we've seen this in the news happening last couple of years, but well, it's gone up and up and up. But why now? So let's hear some views from you, Mourad. And
yeah, sure. So I think, for the ones of you who are familiar with the Gartner hype life cycle, that basically goes through every new technology out there, usually goes through this life cycle of crazy big hype at the very beginning. Quickly after that, it then drops quite a lot into what they call the trough of disillusionment. Then it's only the ones who stay within that industry, so to speak, who try to build within the boundaries of what has been found in that specific industry, who then come up with the solutions that do take off. And I think if we look at that curve, we are at that place now where we're out of the disillusionment part, and where most of the actors around the AI industry have now found solutions that will bring value to the end users. And so, this is part of the problem, or part of the reason why we are seeing so much talk about it, and why it is now that we have to take advantage of it. But then there are other aspects to it as well, when it comes to the infrastructure behind.
Well, thank you. And on that, size and cost is a topic of interest in a lot of news, like large models, small models, and how's AI heading forward, what makes sense in ROI. So a little bit about that, Maryann, if you could share your perspectives about models and different aspects.
I remember when I was doing my marketing roadshow since September last year in 2024, we were already educating the market that we believe by beginning of 2025, we're likely to see a significant surge of deployment of AI, mostly because 5 key ingredients of AI developments were very matured. That includes capital availability, hardware chips availability, talents being trained, data that's already being trained, pre-trained, available for inferencing, and also power electricity. So when back in 2024, we were educating the market that we believe in the beginning of 2025 is when we are likely to see the market or the ecosystem that we operated are AI shovel ready. That also led to the efficiency and cost aspect of it. We saw in the last 2 years, the cost of a token, the cost of compute have dropped significantly, about 100-folds every 2 years. The models, either large language model, multimodality model, inferencing, iteration, and upgrades is happening every 3 to 6 months. As hardware cost declines significantly, the software component of the models become much more significant efficiency and highly efficient. We also see our model have very, very few hallucination rate because our model have been trained in very specific domain sectors. All those allow the deployment of model or our AI solutions to be commercialized, particularly in highly regulated environment such as insurance companies, banks, hospitals, or even public affairs. And even in China, the State Council have guided by 2027, AI deployment should reach 70% of penetration. And by 2030, it should reach 90%. With the top-down policy directives and with a bottom-up technical advancement, significant cost reduction, we do believe the AI solution will be commoditized to a point where it will be mass deployed and massively used. And hence, this is what we see of an AI-empowered future.
Thank you. Yeah, the core of what's happening is most relevant if it's we can relate it to what's real. And I think if I may call upon you, Zachary, to share the what's real as an example, if you can share to the local communities here in Dubai or globally, that we can touch and feel.
Yeah, so, I mean, if we look at Dubai, UAE in general, there is been significant progress and advancement into the implementation of AI into our everyday lives. You know, we have the benefit of having a government that is willing to take risk, that is very technology forward, and that is is a highly attractive government to work with. They're open to do business, so we've seen a significant amount of implementation of AI into our daily lives. You're interacting with AI when you're walking through the airport in Dubai. When as you deal in different parts of the healthcare system, AI is enabling progress in healthcare. So a lot of things are really happening as we speak here in the here and now today in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. You have several organizations in Abu Dhabi under the G42 umbrella, like Presight, that are building, implementing data analytics and AI into various things from how civil security is done to analyzing where the next flood is going to be. Those of us who were in Dubai not long ago experienced some bad floods the last time it rained. So the next time, AI is going to help us analyze where the risks are and how to manage them better. So yeah, we're seeing this happen in real time, and it is already impacting our lives in ways that we can't see, and that we can see. So it's it's great to be in a place where business and government can interact in such a productive and forward-looking manner.
Thank you. You're taking that view from livability in a city to more personal healthcare. Maybe we can tap into some views about Derek on what's real in healthcare.
I can talk about what's real in the operating room. The operating room, if anyone's ever had to be in one, is a super busy and confusing place. They're actually quite dangerous places, operating rooms. Iatrogenic harm, which is the harm that the healthcare industry does to patients in its charge, is a top 10 killer, according to the WHO. I think it's number 7. Surgery has a incident rate, so an avoidable harms rate, which is higher than if you were a combat soldier in Afghanistan in 2002. So the message there is don't go into the operating room if you can avoid it. A lot of this is avoidable. So if you think about the complexity of that happens in the operating room, it's a really data-rich environment. You've got people moving around doing things. You've got medical devices talking to each other. You've got people speaking with each other. You can capture all of that and you can infer things that are happening inside the operating room using multimodal AI. So the problem that exists today is that all of these systems and all of these events they're completely siloed from one another. Nothing actually talks. There's very little in the way of true operating room integration just now. So as humans, we really struggle to identify patterns when we don't have access to the full picture of the data, and this is where we start to bring in AI. So, for example, you can put a camera or a couple of cameras in the OR. You can put a couple of depth sensors and a microphone. And you can capture all of the video of everything that's happening inside the OR. So you're looking at not only what's happening with the patient and the patient's safety factors around that, so things like, for example, how many times the surgical field is being violated, was the patient draped properly, is there panic in the words being used by the people in the operating room that indicates something is going wrong that the operating manager needs to know about. What time did the patient get wheeled into the operating room? What time did they get wheeled out? So you're looking at some of the economic effects of how quickly are patients traversing what is fundamentally a capital asset for the hospital. So usage matters because usage turns into dollars and pounds. You're looking at how teams work with each other. And again, historically, you wouldn't, unless you had a team of people watching the team of people, you wouldn't have been able to figure out what's going on. But using multimodal AI, you can bring all of that together and you can paint a really rich picture to the hospital operators, to the surgical teams, even to the patients of what's happening inside the OR, which drives up safety, it drives up efficiency, reduces waste apart from anything else. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Now bringing that a little bit closer to things we touch and feel, things around us. Robotics is making a huge impact in manufacturing. Maybe Maryann, you could share a couple of very quick views on what's happening.
Yeah, I think I would like to share some light case study examples of how a multimodality model can be integrated. If we just view models as software, any type of devices as hardware, your software, which is your multimodality model, your large language model, can be integrated with a variety of hardwares. Hardware can include your mobile phones, it could include your autonomous driving units, your automotives, or your glasses, or even robotics, right? So for SenseTime, we have integrated our multimodality model into robotics. When you view a multimodality model, how multimodality model differ from large language model? LLM is text and image based. When it comes to multimodality model is trained in native multimodality environment through hearing, physics movement, through voices, through vision, computer vision, that encompasses of how much closer the model can associate with the environment, much more similar to how human associates with the environment. So when you put that model, multimodality model into a robotics, the robotics now have much more human-like interpretation of the environment. We have our own companion AI, which is an AI that can have human-like conversation, and we've already back-tested. Now humans are able to speak to the companion AI on average 2 hours a day, with more than 50% of the time that they will come back and to speak to the same companion AI the next day. If you encompass a companion AI with multimodality environment to interact with it, with how human interact with the environment, with a robotics form, that can be implemented in elderly care, in presentation, in museum. So we hosted a WAIC, World AI Conference in July in Shanghai. We actually had robotics that does the presentation, going through the pages and pages of PPT, answer real-time questions by video, by interviews from the media journalists, all much more similar to how humans interact with the environment. So that's another good example as to how integrate software, large language model, or multimodality model in a hardware such as robotics. Similarly, the multimodality model can be adapted to autonomous driving. But that's another different topic, which I will leave it for next. Otherwise, I'll take the remaining 8 minutes. So,
Thank you. Great. So we set out this panel to cover 3 very impactful things in the room. One is what's real. The second is the quick deployment. What are the quick wins? And the third is where the outsized returns. So we'll move our focus onto where is the quick deployment. And to cover some of those thoughts of quick deployment, maybe I'll move on to you, Zachary. If you could share examples in security or examples in anything that is a great learning for enterprises here today.
Well, I mean, I think one of the greatest quick wins that's becoming very relevant at the moment is actually is in security, and in security within the AI data center. Over the last couple of years, security really hasn't been at the forefront of priorities. Data is just everywhere, right? Everybody's data is everywhere, that's. And you have governments that are talking about sovereign AI, and they think sovereign AI is a data center that's across the street from them, but that data center, all the data is just completely exposed to everything. So NVIDIA and AMD and the hardware manufacturers have made significant advancements recently in confidential compute and allowing for data to move in and out and across GPUs while remaining encrypted only when it at all times that it needs to be encrypted, and only being decrypted when it absolutely needs to be. You can even actually now encrypt models. You can encrypt model weights and have them run on a GPU without the organization that owns that GPU knowing what's in the model, which has implications for things like diffusion rule and other kind of risks that closed weight models are thinking about it, kind of getting their IP exposed. There was a lot of IP that was exposed. I mean, we talked briefly about DeepSeek, and DeepSeek used a lot of other IP from other organizations that was exposed through a lack of kind of security in the infrastructure. So I think security is going to be a big win. There's been security is always kind of viewed as a handbrake. It kind of slows things down because encrypting and decrypting things takes some of the compute away from running raw tasks. But there are actually ways around that. It's become a lot more efficient. So I think this year and going into next year, we're going to see a lot more focus and implementation in security. And as we go into these multimodality, making sure that each system only has the data that it needs or that it should have, and particularly when you're dealing with things like healthcare data, right? And regulators don't allow that data to move freely, right? They're very conscious of who can see that data and why they're seeing that data and protecting it. So I think security's a quick win. If we're looking for quick wins, where we're going to see companies that are implementing that in the data center, gaining a lot of market share and solving a lot of problems that there currently aren't obvious solutions to. Although I will say, again, NVIDIA's done an amazing job with confidential compute, but there's still limitations to what can be done. You need another layer above that to be able to really implement it. And I think that goes for all the hardware vendors that have implemented on-chip encryption systems for their hardware.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we have all this amazing AI, and I wish we had a pause button. We could create more time for us in the room today, which we can't with the AI. So we're going to flow through a little bit quicker from thinking about deployment into also being able to cover where to invest. So before we move on, let's hear some of the insights from finance point of view from Mourad on where to deploy, and if you could connect it forward to where to invest, and then that we would.
Well, it's very far from the cool world of robotics and the very life-saving world of healthcare. But when it comes to financial markets, it's clear one of the things that we've seen in the early stages of this AI adoption, it's been the usual chatbots. It's mostly querying, how much P&L have I generated over the last month, what sectors have given me the largest contributions to my portfolio. So it's really moved from there. And now what we're seeing is more the assistant type of AI. So it's now more thinking of scraping the data outside what's happening on the markets. So we now have assistants that will be able to go and come back and tell you, I've seen that there's been a spike in the price of gold. You have some exposure into your portfolio. Do you want me to run a stress test for you to see the impact on your current holdings? And then after that, it can tell you, well, now do you want me to rebalance that portfolio with things that can flatten some of that risk? And so it's really become more of an assistant rather than just something that is just a querying tool. And this is where the value comes from. Now, clearly, that comes with a few things that have to be put in place. Namely, how are you letting these LLMs and agents interact with the data that you have? And I think my colleagues have mentioned a few things there, but what clearly has been a reality for us is that instead of letting a large language model just go ahead and query databases, what has been working super well is creating those agents for each one of those specific tools. And again, I'll give the boring example of a stress test. It's much better to put an agent that is specific on stress testing a portfolio and then connect it to another agent that then goes for that specific tool rather than just dumping a very vague query on something that can come up with data that really doesn't make a lot of sense in many cases. But I think we're going to talk about some of the challenges in a minute, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I think the largest challenge we face is in front of us, time, and it's amazing after lunch to have everyone's attention and such an engagement. I'll quickly flow the conversation towards a little bit closing points, and around that it's interesting and important to talk about where are the outsized returns, where to invest, and maybe do a quick rapid fire with my panel members, given the time we have. Where do we think each one around, in one or two or maybe 5 words, a few words, where are the big thematic, outsized returns? And is it in infrastructure or software layer? But if you could just share a few words of perspective. Of course, I think we have good 20, 30 minutes of content to carry on, and I guess everyone would be outside the room later for conversation. So yeah, I'll start with Mourad and just go around
I'll just follow on from where I left off. I think one of the things that's being clear here is that everyone is going after optimization of resources here, right? Whether that's cost, whether that's folks working on it. And so from that point of view, it's been very clear from the outset that better to let folks who do certain things better than I do, do that part, and then me doing the specialized part. And so, for example, building a whole LLM doesn't really make sense for each company to do that. It's better to take something that's off the shelf, ready, and then do the specialized piece there. So most of our focus, at least from a financial markets perspective, is building those tools that are specific to the use cases that people need, and then connecting them to those large language models specifically. And so a lot of the investment is going into how can I make the tools available to the people a much easier one, and I gave the example of the assistant there. The investment infrastructure is not really our part of the story, so we would let the Googles and the Microsofts of this world do that part of it, which I think connects to some of
may I
my
just-
colleagues here.
Yeah, to move the conversation to Maryann, a couple of words in your way around the table. Yeah.
If we think of a plug and play, many of the AI solutions actually can be 80% standardized with only less than 20% to be bespoke for customer demands. And I think a lot of times we need to focus that AI is here to elevate human to do higher value job. So AI should be replacing repetitive, boring tasks so human-centric functions can be elevated to do much higher creative jobs. A lot of times I think when we talk about investment, I do find people tend to neglect customers' willingness to pay. So if we are able to identify AI solutions that have a large amount of customer base that are willing to pay for the solutions, that's where we can identify the ROIC of the particular solutions. So that's where I would look at specific domain sectors, AI solutions with identified customers, those are willing to pay for the products.
I'll be slightly controversial and say invest in your people, because they're the ones that are going to get the most out of using AI, to Maryann's point, turning them into this idea of a centaur where they can multiply what they do on the complex stuff, and they can offload all of the basic tasks which often consume people's days to agentic platforms that just do it for them.
I'd say the most lucrative opportunity right now is anyone who can plug in 10,000 GPUs in the next 6 to 9 months. If you can plug them in and light them up, you are in a very good position, and it's very, very, very hard to do right now. Sorry? Why not? Why not? Well, nobody can think longer than 12 months right now for some reason. It's you know, if you can plug in GPUs, or if you have data halls that are GPU ready in the next 6, 9, 12 months, you've got customers lined up around the door, out the door, around the block, and down the street. If you can light it up in 2027, then we'll talk to you in 2026.
Thank you. And lastly, but not the least, I think it's acumen, as everyone in the room knows. Look for projects and people with great vision, great execution, but also please think about unit economics. If you think about taking AI projects from AI pilot to AI profit, I think that's where outsized returns are. And in the interest of time, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, and appreciate it.
Thanks.